we're here to kind of help people make recommendations, but it's people's risk appetite. Do they want to keep it all in there? Or if they're going to pull it out now, do they want to keep it in cash? Well, we know cash is eroding just based on inflation and becoming worth less and less because we're also printing more money and everything's becoming more expensive. Or would you rather have it in a physical commodity that's had a track record since the dawn of time, so to speak, that is really a proven safe haven?
Hello and welcome to Along the Way Life's Journey. I'm your host, Carl Buccellato. As I've told you many times, I've traveled millions of miles around the world and met wonderful, wonderful people. One of my great experiences in life was to spend a good deal of time in London in the 80s and 90s. And we have a man on the show today who was born and raised in London. And he has quite an experience to tell us about. First of all, he's an expert on gold. He has got tremendous background and experience in precious metals. But he also has a life story. A story that I think you're going to be interested in knowing about. His name is Jonathan Rose. Jonathan, welcome to our show.
Carl, pleasure. Thank you for having me, sir. And I hope I can bring some value to your listeners and share my experiences with you and the other people listening today.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will give them benefit not only in your life experience, but in telling us a little bit about your business and the Gold Genesis Group and the Genesis Gold Group. And there's a lot to learn here. And I, for one, want to learn about it because I've been an investor all my life, but I really don't have much understanding of gold. And you can tell me about that. So tell us about Jonathan first. Who is Jonathan Rose?
Well, where do we begin?
The beginning.
I won't start as a child, but I will give you a little bit of background on me. So as you can hear from my accent, you're right. I'm not from Kansas. I'm from London. I grew up in London, educated in London. My family's still over there. Funny enough, my wife is Scottish, but she also grew up in London. Fast forward to today, we have twins, and they're in a beautiful faith-based school over here, a boy-girl twin. They're 11 years old. But, I started my career, obviously, in London, and I was very fortunate enough to work on the London Metal Exchange. I know you and I were talking briefly off camera about your experiences working over there, but I was very fortunate enough to work on the trading pit where people wore those funny jackets and they were screaming and yelling and throwing their hands.
Believe it or not, I'm familiar with that because I have two cousins who were on the mercantile exchange, not only as traders, but they had a clearinghouse, and they tried to induce me to become the third member of their team. And I spent a week on the floor in New York in the mercantile exchange. And after 1 week there, I said, no, this is too frantic for me. I'm going into business.
I loved it. I love organized chaos, I guess you could say.
That's what it felt like.
Nothing has changed in my life. I thrive on it. So I was very fortunate enough to work for big American banks such as Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley. Started off with a company called Prudential-based Securities. And that was on the base metals market where they traded aluminum or aluminium, as I would say, right? Yes. Copper, tin, lead, zinc. And next to me on the trading pit was the precious metals market, a much smaller market than base metals. But precious metals always intrigued me. And I think it simply had something as simple as this because my grandfather used to give me gold coins for Christmas every year as a child, British sovereign coins. Not only that, Carl, I still have these coins.
They must be very valuable today.
Well, it cemented my belief in gold because these coins, yes, you're correct, are worth a lot more today than they were back then. And my children now have those coins and I carry on the same tradition.
Right.
So that, made my belief system in gold solid, right, as the gold itself, literally. But I remember trading in London, some of the top traders would say to me, Jonathan, if you're ever going to invest in precious metals, the safest way to do it, not gold futures, not gold mining stocks, not ETF, is to physically hold on to it yourself, something tangible. Always keep this on my desk. This is a kilo worth of gold right here. And I hold it up pretty nifty, but it's pretty heavy. This is worth about $90,000 right here. This is a kilo worth of gold, right?
Wow.
And it's going up every day right now based on the economy. We can get into that a little bit further. But, so I had a belief system in gold. I was kind of, very fortunate enough to start my career at 21 in the financial markets. when I came to America in 97. Wow, you're making me think now. I'm feeling older than I am. 97, I was very fortunate enough to still be involved in precious metals. And I also became a registered financial consultant. I took a Series 3 commodities license, passed that. And then I actually got approached at a conference by the International Association for Registered Financial Consultants. And I got invited myself, and I brought some of my teams with me to Southeast Asia. And I was working with companies like HSBC and AIG. Now, back in the early 2000s in Asia, gold was a fairly different concept of investing over there, because in America, we would invest in coins and bars. And in Southeast Asia, they would invest in jewelry. It's kind of like a bracelet I'm wearing now. So they would invest, there you go. They would invest in gold jewelry. Now, the problem with that, Carl, is that when you're investing in gold jewelry, you're paying a premium for the design of the intricacies of the necklace, bracelet. It's not
pure gold. They mix other metals in it.
Yeah, so you're paying a premium. So it was really interesting to go over there and advise and train the financial advisors at AIG on how Westerners, such as myself, actually approach gold and how we sold gold to the general population here in the States. With HSBC, I helped them with set up gold voltage storage in Southeast Asia, which I was responsible for, which they now have to this date. And when I came back from Southeast Asia, I was over there for about 6 months. I was still in the gold market, and obviously being involved in precious metals, it's cyclical, right? And there's specific events throughout history that kind of ebbs and flows, that put some wind in the sails and push it out further. You know, obviously 9/11, when that happened, that was a bull market for gold. But, you know, the Y2K, everyone thought their phones and cameras were going to stop working. So run to the hills when you're done with the gold. You know, that didn't happen. And obviously the dot-com crash, and we had the '08 market crash. So there's been different times throughout history that I've been a part of, and I've seen these markets. It's all I know is financial markets. And I will say, fast forward to today with Genesis Gold Group, where we help people put metals in their pensions, such as IRAs, 401ks, etc. People are really gravitating towards the yellow metal more than ever. And you got to ask yourself why. Well, if you look at the price of gold,
look at the world, look at the economy.
Yeah, look at the economy. 1 year gold's up 40%, and I say to people, why? And you just kind of answer that for me. Look at the economy. You know, a lot of instability in the Middle East. You know, Israel and what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. We've had bank failures, trade deficit issues. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So, you know, pivotal election countdown happening next week. So, you know, there's going to be some major changes in the marketplace, and people look at gold as a safe haven. And if you're looking to a flight for safety and security, then this is why people diversify their portfolio with physical assets.
Yeah, so it's now it's expected to be $3,000 an ounce, about that, right? And so it'll probably go even beyond that because of world conditions.
We're pretty close. I'm just going to pull up one of my trading screens here and have a look. You know, I'm not a big person that likes to project, because anyone, you know, they can point a finger at you and say, yo, you were wrong. But I will say, I remember when I was in Southeast Asia and people would put me, I was like in an assembly hall with about 300-400 people, and people were saying, well, what do you think the price of gold is going to be? Yeah. And I'd say, well, $2,000 an ounce for gold is in the near future. They laughed at me, Carl. The funniest thing, I got laughed at. They're like, 2,000, look at this guy. Who does he think he is? And look where we're at today. We're pushing nearly 3,000. Now, do I think it's going to go higher than that? My own personal beliefs, absolutely. But we don't have a crystal ball, but we have a pretty good roadmap, and we know what that roadmap looks like.
Okay, so most countries have supplies of gold. And we know that we have the Federal Exchange Bank here in the United States, and they probably have the largest holding of gold anywhere in the world, right, in Fort Knox. So when you look at what's happening with gold, and you look at what's happening with the inflation and the interest rates here in the United States, it's kind of self-serving for the government to make sure that gold is sustained and stays stronger and stronger, because we need it for our balance sheet just as much as individuals do.
Well, not necessarily, actually. So, we came off the gold standard. Remember
I know
that?
some time ago, but we collect a lot of gold in this country.
We collect it, but it's undisclosed. We have metric tons of it in Fort Knox, and I know the mint directors that look after that place. But when you look at what's happening with these central banks, they're buying gold. They're buying it for a reason, and it's not to bolster our balance sheets. It's probably for a big question mark or an unknown scenario that could even be the D word, depression, right? Because if we have gold and we need to rebuild the economy, then that's what they would essentially use it for. But it's not something that financial advisors or the government pushes on us to buy gold. You really need to be educated and do your own research on why you need to buy gold.
Yeah, especially the more they put pressure on the US dollar, the more valuable the gold becomes to you. So if you're looking at a man who's 82 years old, of course I'm retired, I no longer have a business, I have investments, but I have a portfolio. If I'm a scenario person to you, what size of my portfolio would you recommend should be gold?
It's a good question. So if you're working with a financial advisor, they will say maybe between 5 to 25% of what you have in paper should be moved over into precious metals. Now, I can tell you from experience, when I speak to people, sometimes people want to get out the Wall Street casino and roll all of it over, right? We're here to kind of help people make recommendations, but it's people's risk appetite. Do they want to keep it all in there? Or if they're going to pull it out now because they're in retirement, do they want to keep it in cash? Well, we know cash is eroding just based on inflation and becoming worth less and less because we're also printing more money and everything's becoming more expensive. Or would you rather have it in a physical commodity that's had a track record since the dawn of time, so to speak, that is really a proven safe haven? So it really depends on the individual. I think, 25% of what you have in paper into solid metals is definitely a start and a good move. And it's, again, people's risk appetite on what they feel is about to happen next in our economy.
Sure. Okay, so we're talking a lot about your business, and the Genesis Gold Group is right there, and it's going to be all over the site here. Tell us again about, we started to hear who Jonathan is, and you told us about growing up in London, and you came from a sound family, and you had traditions, and your grandpa was very good to you. How did you come to be who you are today?
Hard work and grit. One thing I'll say about me is I'm prepared to do what most people aren't prepared to do. I like to work out, keep in shape, stay healthy. And sometimes my wife says to me, it's 10 o'clock at night. She's like, why are you working out? I say, because no one else is doing it right now. And it's always, for me, important to keep an edge. I think if you look after yourself first, whether it's your health, because health is also wealth, then I can look after everybody else, being my family, my children, etc. I wouldn't say that's the be all and end all, but I do personally believe that, if you're sitting on the couch and, you need to be walking. If you're a young kid and you're playing video games, put that controller down, learn the piano, learn something that's going to give you an edge. And I think today it's important to have an edge in life, whatever that may be, a musical instrument, another language, a skill, because that, as a young, driven male, I believe will take you further in life, especially when you start to get into business.
Well, I agree with all of that. I wholeheartedly agree. I learned a long time ago as I was traveling around the world, every time you sit on an airplane, they tell you when the oxygen masks come down, put it on yourself first, because if you can't sustain, you can't help anyone. And that's basically what you're talking about. Make sure that you're in good shape so that you can be the provider for your family, the husband to your wife, the protector to their needs. And I think we kind of lose that in this culture. We get a little fat and sassy and easy coming. Everybody's with the selfies, they don't really do anything.
It drives me mad. No, you bring up a good point. I like that airplane analogy, right? Because if you can't help yourself, how can you help others? I always had, as a young child, I remember I'd come home from school. I don't know if it was because of, because in England, we have 4 TV channels. Not anymore, because now we have cable like America has, but we had 4 channels, and technically only 2 of them had programming on it. So everybody kind of watched the same TV, and a lot of the broadcast television was American shows. And when you're in the 80s watching TV as a child, and you see America this and America that, it was just the American dream. And I used to say to my mother, look, when I grow up, I'm going to move to America. And I used to say this all the time. To one point, I remember my dad came home and he's like, "Can you stop telling your mom you're moving to America?" And they get upset.
She's feeling separation loss already, and you didn't even go yet.
I know. And this is probably I can remember doing this at 11 or something. It was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, I kind of make a joke that I watched a lot of Baywatch as well as a child. And I was like, I want to go to America. So
it's it's kind of ironic because I'm the prodigy of immigrants, and they came to the United States, and they became citizens, learned the language, contributed to this country, and I was born with a silver spoon. Not a silver spoon, but I won the lottery because I was born in the United States, and I came from poor stock, but it gave me an opportunity to get an education, to travel, to aspire, to build businesses, to succeed. And every time I travel around the world, I see the world becoming less and less the world and more America. And I say, how sad is this? They're losing their cultures. They're losing their individual flair of who they are. It's a sad thing to me,
So, Carl, where were your parents from?
Well, my grandparents were born in Sicily. And I've been there many times. They came from a little town on the northwest side of the island called Castellamare de Golfo, which was a little bitty town. And it had a natural harbor port. And my great-grandparents came from Lucca in Italy, northern Italy, and they were brought down to Sicily because they were shipbuilders. And from 1287, they were there in Sicily. And they were shipbuilders, and they helped to build armadas for the Spanish fleet and so forth. But they were granted land. And so they had land there from back in the late 1200s. And my family's origin comes from there. And the valley, which is the Buccellato family, if you've ever been to Sicily, there's a temple of Segesta, which was built by the Greeks 3,000 years ago. And below that temple is this huge valley, which used to belong to my great-great-great-great-grandfather, and passed it down in his heritage to all of his progeny. And every time somebody died, it broke off to another family, another family, and another family. So now we have about 7 inches of land left, I guess. There's many, many claims to the valley.
Well, but it's wonderful you can go that far back and trace your family.
Oh, I'm so delighted about it. I made it my business to find out about my ancestry. And I've had a special gift. I've been able to bring each of my sons and each of my grandsons individually, just they and I, to Sicily, to walk the path of where our ancestors came from, go to the church where they were baptized, where they were married, where the funeral procession took place, across the road to the cemetery where they're buried. I wanted my children to have roots, to know where they came from. I also believe that the only way they could truly have wings to be individuals, to live their own life, is to know who they are. They have to know their foundation. So to me, that was very important, to take them there and share that with them, as I shared my faith with them. I'm a faith-filled man, and I believe in God, and I make no excuses for it. Some people won't say that, but I absolutely believe in Jesus, and that's my foundation, So I had to share it with my children and my grandchildren, and hopefully it took some root. So, and I know you have a faith story of your own. Would you like to share some of it with us?
Well, I grew up in a Jewish household. So, I went to Sunday Hebrew school every Sunday up until I was 13, that's where you get bar mitzvahed as considered a man in the Jewish religion. And, as expected, when you grow up in a Jewish family and your family are Jewish and their family before them was Jewish, they expect you to marry someone who's Jewish. And I broke that tradition and actually married a beautiful Christian girl who was very religious and, Bible study, goes to church. How we ended up together, Carl, I don't know. So, we kind of kind of created our own home, and our kids go to a faith-based school now, and I'm very happy. It's very different, kind of coming from a Jewish household into a Christian household, and there's a lot of questions I had that definitely got answered that weren't being answered before, and I've got a good group of people around me. In fact, Genesis Gold Group is also a faith-based company. We have a couple of pastors that work for us, and I know my father-in-law, who God rest his soul, he passed away of cancer, stomach cancer, and during his time of the last couple of months, we would sit there and he would read me quotes from the Bible and answer a lot of questions for me, and kind of brought me to my newfound faith. So it's definitely an ongoing journey where I'm always learning, and I think that's very important. In faith, is to always be open and ask questions, because there's a lot of questions I'm always asking that need to be answered.
Right. I agree with that. As a matter of fact, I went to lunch today with a group of men from my church. We have a Thursday meeting of the men's group in a lunch place, and we sit around and we really just sharpening iron, discussing things of our lives and scripture, and how does it apply to us, and what does it mean to us in our modern day. This may have said something and meant something then. What does it mean now? And it's usually still traditionally sound. It's, if we think it's off in any way, you dig a little deeper and you find out that you're off, not it. It's always sound. It's never wrong. It's always sound, And it's for me, it's been a wonderful thing to be with men of that kind who can hold me accountable, who I can speak to, and really, being a CEO of a major company and employing so many people. Everybody, this. Everybody's going to give you a yes. They're yes men, and you need to be able to be with people who will appreciate who you are, but hold you accountable as well. To be able to say to you, I think you have to take another look at that. Step back and take a look,
Yeah, I agree. Just like in business as well.
That's right. Very much in business. God has blessed me in business because I too believe in your concept of Genesis, that, we have to put him first, and we have to be willing to do it the right way, not always the expedient way, just for the, when I was the CEO of a public company and the quarterly reports would come around, I'd have to do these online interviews with all of the financial people and the analysts and so forth. And they ask you questions, and inevitably every time they would ask you a question, guiding it in such a way because they wanted you to give them an answer that they could use in their report. And it wasn't exactly what I wanted to say. So I'd say something different. And they'd say, call me afterwards, and they say, why did you do that? Because it was right to do that. You have to do what's right. There are laws, there are federal laws, SEC laws that say you have to do things a certain way. And I'm not implying that they were asking me to do other than that. But, sometimes you can turn a phrase one way or turn a phrase another way.
Oh, absolutely. That's why you have to be careful what you tell the press.
That's right. Especially the press. I must say, it saddens me what's become of the press in the world today. That it used to be the guardian of the people. It's not any longer.
No, the world's definitely changed. I grew up under, in England under, Maggie Thatcher, the Iron Lady, and and she was big on, the military. She was big on protecting our borders. We had a great relationship with America back then. Ronald Reagan was president, and that's when, in my opinion, America was great. And America's, that Western dominance has obviously come to an end. And look what we're dealing with today. A lot of, woke liberals and
that's right,
and crazy stuff being taught to our kids. And it's why I have my kids in a faith-based school, because I don't want them, call me old-fashioned, but I believe blue is blue and pink is pink. And, and when kids are younger, I just want them being taught by, good, honest people who follow the right path. And that's we've kind of lost that. I feel like in
I
America.
agree.
So,
That's why I said that's the foundation I'm talking about with my children.
yeah,
It's so important to teach them not only the foundation of their heritage and their family tradition, but of their faith and
yeah,
what's real, what can be
yeah,
relied on every day. If you do your part and you follow the scriptures and you follow God's direction in your life, you can expect it to go a certain way. And sometimes
yes.
it doesn't. Sometimes a curveball comes at you and you overcome those things. You're a young man. I don't know if you've had any life-shattering experiences. Hopefully, you didn't. But I can tell you, at my point in life, there are a number of times I should have been dead, and I'm alive today, and I'm here for it. And I know that you just overcome those things. You put your faith in God's hand, and you overcome. 11 years ago, I had what was called a hemorrhagic stroke. And the left side of my brain, a vessel exploded, my skull filled with blood. They told my wife I would not live through the night. And
Oh,
my
wow.
wife said, "You don't know my God." And here I am 11 years later. I'm speaking, I'm functioning, I'm hosting this podcast. I've written a book, and after I retired, I meet with different groups of people. I talk about what's important in politics that we have to remember. That we have to, if we expect this country to remain free, we have to stand for its freedom and speak out. If we expect our children to be safe, we have to fight against abortion. All these things I speak out about, and
Amen to that.
obviously not dead yet.
Yeah, yeah. You're doing a great job, Carl.
Thank you. So we're at the. I know I promised you we would do it short, and your company is Genesis Gold Group, and we're going to have all of the information on where people can contact you, your website, your email address, your Genesis information, so they can talk to you and ask you questions about what you offer and your services, or just generally tell you they think you're a nice guy. You're going to find all kinds of people who will respond to this. So anything, I'm going to give you a few minutes to say anything you'd like to say before we close up.
Gosh, okay. Well, just a little bit about Genesis Gold Group. Obviously, we help people with precious metals, but more importantly, we help people with an education. So, if they do go to our website, genesisgoldgroup.com, they can sign up there and get some ebooks sent to them, whether it's a wealth protection kit, whether it's an e-guide on the de-dollarization that's happening right now. Maybe they want to learn more about BRICS nations and what's happening with the dollar and gold, or central bank digital currencies. There's a lot that's kind of in the news that's percolating, that's kind of not being talked about. Why Jerome Powell, head of the Federal Reserve, is expecting more regional bank failures. These are all important matters that people should get an education on, because if they have, an IRA or 401k tied to the market, and the market, who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. It's important to, be
Right.
proactive and not reactive.
Right.
And that's really what we do here. We just kind of provide an education and an understanding of how you can benefit and hold on to precious metals. And it's something we wholeheartedly believe in.
Well, that's wonderful. Jonathan, I'll take you up on it offline. I'll go through the normal process like other people do, because I do have a number of questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this was beneficial to you. I hope you learned a great deal today. I know I did. Jonathan is a very interesting man. He has a lot to say, and a lot more to say than we've had the time to do with right now today. Do reach out to him. And if you are concerned about the future of the finance future of our country and what's going on in the world, as I am, it'll be a beneficial conversation, I'm sure. So, Jonathan, thank you for joining us here today. I wish you great success in all you do. I wish God's blessings on you and your family, especially those two beautiful twins. And
Thank you.
may you continue to smile and enjoy life. Ladies
Thank
and
you.
gentlemen, that's our show today. Before we close, I want to remind you, you have your own story. I know you do. Everybody has their own story, and no one can tell it like you can. Write it down. Tell it to your loved ones. Tell it to your friends. Write it into the newspapers. Write it into the agencies on TV news. Because when it's too late, it's too late. None of that information will do anyone any good. So make sure you share the news. And I'm going to tell you what I say every week. I'm just this big blustery guy from Brooklyn. What do I know? I know this to be true. Get somebody you know today. Give them a big bear hug. Tell them you love them. Tell them you love them. It may be the only time they hear those words. And I'm quite sure God loves them also. So, Jonathan, you know what I'm going to do in this close? I love you, man. That's it.
I love you back, Carl. Appreciate it. God bless.
Bye-bye.